opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay. Okay, our first case tonight is 22-28-S. EDP RNA BG Illinois Development LLC is the petitioner.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Did you skip number 3, public comment? The reason I ask is there are some people in the audience in the public who wanted to comment.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman. We will proceed with number 3, and then we will come back to case 22-28-S. Is there any public comments on matters not listed on tonight's agenda? Yes. As you come up to this microphone. State your name and address.
Tim Bear, 23785 Augustine Lane, Fremont, Illinois.
Okay, and comments on items that are not on our agenda tonight?
Yes, what I wanted to make comments on is, I guess, want to express my concern that, as far as I know, are there, I guess I'm not aware, does Tazewell County have its own ordinance for solar?
Okay.
Do we have a solar ordinance? Yes.
Okay, then at least get that. Well, the reason I express concern is that it appears that maybe some updating last on the 31st of August at the full board meeting. I talked to one Tazewell County board member. He mentioned under 20,000 proposed acres solar farm in Tazewell County. I don't know if anyone's heard that, but kind of got my attention. And so I guess where I'm going with that, and I'm seeing it physically too, you see being rolled off and solar farms being put in. But there must be way more solar farms that I'm not aware of. It's one of the board members mentioned that. I was thinking that it seems that my concern is that some very nice farm ground getting chewed up and being put in solar farms. And so I just wanted to encourage the board to think that would be wise to address that probably sooner rather than later, if that in fact is true. I was just told that by one of the Tazewell County board members, that there's something like 20,000 in the works. And this board member specifically said he felt like the United Citizens of Tazewell County kind of delayed that the solar farm ordinance, and I'm thinking, I was thinking delayed it. We actually should advance it because we took care of the wind farm. We didn't do anything with the solar farm, the United Citizens of Tazewell County. I just wanted to encourage the board. I think my concern is we don't want to see too many acres in solar farm before you get an ordinance. We would maybe cite it correctly so that not all the good agricultural land is used in solar farms. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments on matters that are not on tonight's agenda? Okay. Case number 22-28-S. The petitioner is EDP RNA BG Illinois Development LLC, requesting a special use to allow the construction of a 4.95 megawatt commercial solar farm in an A1 ag district. Is there a representative of, okay, Marcus Hope? Okay, up here. Okay, name and address for the record.
Marcus Cope, 1760 Kings Court, South Park, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self of God. Okay. We don't have any reports tonight, and so Jack or Melissa, video. Okay, I don't have that.
You don't have your
Okay. Okay. And then date is what page? Okay. Well, what page is Gates? Oh, here it is. Section E123. Okay, Health Department, during construction, portable toilets and portable hand washing stations must be provided. City of Washington commented, the proposal to construct a 4.95 megawatt community solar commercial scale farm in an A1 district. The proposed project appears to meet all Tazewell County zoning regulations. Their staff would suggest that a privacy fence around the site may be more suitable than a chain link fence. Also noted stormwater runoff that may result should be addressed. Soil and water, 68A Sable Silt Loam, 0 to 2% slope, productivity rating of 155. Waterways need to be maintained and tiles need to be fixed if destroyed. Recommend not having construction during excessively wet weather and use conservation cover crops to help protect the soil. Recommend denial because prime farm ground will be taken out of production. And then Gabe has E1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, based on the findings of fact, so we have 12 positives and 2 non-applicables. So we recommend that the special use to construct a 4.95 megawatt commercial soil farm in A1 district be approved.
Okay, thank you.
Request for special use to allow construction of solar farm at A1 district. A, this direction is north. This is proposed location, solar. The revised site plan will have the entrance just to the west of the dwelling. This is the dwelling. This direction is west on Irish Lane. This direction is south. And this direction is east on Irish Lane. There's residence just to the east.
This gentleman's name. Okay, Mr. Cope, right? Okay, why don't you explain the request tonight?
The applicant, ADPRNA, is applying for this one, this van parking one parcel, located in Washington Township, comprised of 27 acres and 11,088 solar panels, an access road, and will be constructed as part of the site development. All best management practices for construction will be considered, and stormwater will be accounted for. The pollinator approved friendly plants will be planted underneath the solar farm, and noxious spray for weeds will also take place. As far as the fence siding, it's been moved to the back, so it's not visible from the road as much with the fence, but there is screening possibilities based upon the design and once we get further along.
Okay, I'm looking at Exhibit A. And so how wide is that access lane to that back portion?
12 feet wide.
12 feet? Okay, and then okay, so the difference between Exhibit A and Exhibit B, Exhibit B, you've got a purple outline that was the approximate area for solar farm, but Exhibit A is the actual area. Is that correct?
That is as revised, yes.
Okay, so board members, you see at the bottom, Exhibit A says revised 831, and so the whole solar panel farm will be at the back. And the copy's kind of hard to read it. You've got black lines, 80-foot setback from the property lines on all sides.
Correct.
Okay, and then where does the electricity, does it come south to Irish Lane?
It'll go overhead from the inverter to the poles out along Irish Lane.
Okay, so where will the poles be? Will they be on the yellow line or on the white line?
There'll be existing poles.
Oh,
The
there's
yellow
already
line.
some poles there.
Yes.
Okay, board members, questions? Yes.
How wide did you say the entrance was going to be, or the roadway?
12 feet.
What's our code require?
This is just lease land, it's not, they're not dividing the land out.
Okay.
So it's an access lane, it's not actual right of frontage.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's leased land, it's not going to be divided off, so there's no frontage or access minimum.
Okay, other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
going back to the road, is it gonna be what I consider all-weather road, so emergency vehicles can get in there during wet weather? Or your service vehicles can get in there during wet weather?
Yes, it will be gravel.
And how about during periods of snow? Will you remove the snow so emergency vehicles can get in there, or are they gonna have to fight snowdrifts to get back there?
I believe it will not be plowed for snow, but I don't believe it will have people manned on site for emergencies, but that can definitely be researched.
So if there's a fire there, and you got snowdrifts, how are they supposed to get in there and protect the equipment or reduce the fire? The hazard?
There will be an operations and maintenance plan that will take in effect the inclement weather and emergency protocol.
Okay, other questions? Yes, land use?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple questions for you. Is it Mr. Tote?
Cope, C.
Cope.
Cope.
Okay, thank you. We're blessed here in Tazewell County with some wonderful farmland, and I'm concerned for each acre that's taken out. This is 25 plus acres. What percentage of that is actually put in glass of the 25 acres? Approximately what percentage would be covered with glass?
Roughly, I don't know the percentage on this one based on the terrain, but it would be upwards of 80%, I would say.
80% covered with glass. Well, that leads me to another concern. In Exhibit A, I see some waterways going through there for drainage and that. And if you have 80% that is no longer going to be absorbing water, so that's going to increase runoff. What provisions do you take to control runoff and prevent erosion?
We use all best management practices based on the stormwater regulations. We'll put in whatever stormwater features that are determined to be necessary for the impervious area created by the solar farm.
Thank you. And another question, in this farmland, there's a lot of underground tile for drainage, and it might drain from one farm through another farm. And what provisions do you take to protect from damaging the tile when you drive I suppose you drive I-beams in the ground?
Correct.
To what depth?
The piles will be driven, I'll have to look exactly how far they're driven, but the tile, if it's broken, it will be fixed, but we will not do anything to alter in tiles or affect them in any way. So if they're damaged or in any place, that will be a concern of the site and will be addressed based on the site conditions.
But when they drive the piles in the ground, how can they tell if they damage a tile?
We can do test hole locations to make sure that we're not drilling through any tile when we place our foundation supports.
The reason for my concern, because it's not just that land, it could be adjoining land that drains through that tile, and if it's damaged, that can cause problems in the adjoining land.
Understood.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Yes.
But I don't have questions, but I have some comments based on your responses to other people's questions. So I'm opposed for 4 reasons. One is prime land, farmland. As Mr. Hemming pointed out, I've been fighting this for 45 years on the county board. Secondly is the tile that Mr. Hemming talked about. Third is the storm water runoff that you said you'd handle, but you gave us no explanation of how or in any details whatsoever. And if I were on the ZBA, I would want to actually put those into conditions if we approved it. And then finally, the privacy fence. I think chain link is wholly inadequate, and it needs to be either a natural berm with evergreen trees or at least a fence that you cannot see through. Thank you.
Okay. Board members, land use, other questions? Yes.
I guess my question is to Ms. Workman that these issues that Mr. Emick has brought up, are these addressed in any of these contracts? I know you can't get into the contracts per se to the landowners, but yet is there provisions for that the county has for the codes, you know, that are written on the books yet?
Yes, so they have to have the AMA, which addresses all of these items, as well as our code with regards to the drain tiles and correcting or replacing anything that's damaged. As far as the stormwater and the runoff, they will have to obtain an NPDES permit through the state, and they'll also obtain and have reviewed and approved a stormwater erosion control permit through our department.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, back to the stormwater, the point I was getting at, the percentage that has glass is no longer gonna have water fall on it. So I believe you said 80%, so that means only 20% of the land, where the rest is gonna have a lot quicker runoff and can create, we see that in the cities and places where there's a lot of pavement, where water can no longer soak into the ground and it runs off quicker. And that was my concern, that with that much of the ground covered with glass, that you're gonna have, when you get a big rain, you're gonna have a lot more runoff quickly than you would otherwise.
The stormwater will be handled through attenuation, so we'll store it and release it at a lower rate. And there's also a volume requirement based on the calculations. So we run a hydrological model and study and to meet the regulations for the stormwater permit, for the PDS permits.
Okay, so did I understand you correctly that it will be held and released slowly, so there's gonna be some type of retention pond or something?
Possibly, I don't know the full site conditions, and the design hasn't been started on that side.
Okay, board members, land use, other questions? Okay, explain the type of panels. Do they tilt, rotate toward the sun, with the sun? Are fixed, or what's going on there?
These are maximum tilt height of 10 feet. They are east-west tracking, ground mount. They won't be moving. They'll just be lined up.
Okay, so maximum of 10 foot tall. Is that what you said?
Correct.
And so all the cables connecting the panels together, are they underground?
I don't believe so.
So are they just laying on top of the ground, or how does that work?
I'm actually unfamiliar with the layout for the electrical side of it. That's not, that design hasn't been completed yet.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, did we have two other people besides him that were, yes?
I'll make this quick. I just want to add a fifth problem, and that is historically, when cases come before the Zoning Board of Appeals, the site plan is part of the discussion and analysis and input by, or questions by the ZBA. It sounds to me, the more I listen to you, that you want the ZBA to just approve the concept that you're doing, and you don't have any of the details. And I really object to that. That's my 5th objection. Thank you.
Okay, Timothy Montague.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, you want to take the microphone over here at this podium. Name and address for the record.
Timothy Montague, 2001 Park Ridge Drive, Orlando, Illinois.
And do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self you got?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You're representing this company. Can you answer any of these questions that have been proposed?
Yes, I'm very experienced in solar construction.
Okay. So how deep are the pilings?
12 to 15 feet typically in central Illinois.
Okay. And so he briefly explained something about drilling test holes to see if these pilings hit tile lines underground. So can you be more specific?
Yeah, you know, all solar developers are very concerned for drainage. We're very familiar with this land use practice of tiling the land to draw water off the land. Illinois was a ginormous wet prairie before modern farming practices. And so there's a variety of ways that you can map the existing tile. I am not a tile expert, but there are engineers who are tile experts, and we would engage those experts to tell us where the tiles are on the property. We would avoid them first and foremost when creating the pile plan. And then those tiles that get damaged would be repaired. Just like tile gets damaged in the ordinary world, and you know things break and it gets replaced. That's what would happen with any solar farm construction. But first and foremost, you avoid the tile.
Okay, and then do you have more input on the stormwater regulation, or how it would possibly be handled, the runoff?
Yeah, I think Mr. Cope was a little incorrect when he said 80%. You have to keep in mind that the rows of panels are separated by 13 feet. The panels themselves are about 6.5 feet long, okay? So they're smaller than a sheet of plywood, and then they're sitting in rows on a pole, and then rotating east to west, following the sun. And so about 50% of the ground of a particular solar farm is actually covered. But you have to keep in mind that this whole structure is 5 feet off the ground. And so you have the structure, it's 5 feet off the ground, and it's rotating. And so as water falls on the panels, it's running down then into these aisles that are 13 feet wide between rows of solar panels. So there's a lot of ground, and the water is actually going to get all over the field just like it did before when there was corn and beans on it. It's also going to be planted with pollinator-friendly vegetation. I'm a trained vegetation ecologist. I have a master's degree from the University of Wisconsin in botany. And so those plants have much deeper roots than corn and beans and are going to absorb a lot more moisture than corn and beans. Now, in the winter, there's no vegetation, and just like there is on a farm field, right? So that's a seasonal phenomenon, granted, but it's a well-known phenomenon in the solar industry that this form of planting vegetation on the solar field is going to reduce the amount of runoff coming off of a site compared to traditional practices. Now, I don't know if Mr. Cope has an opinion as an environmental engineer about what I just said, because I would certainly appreciate that.
Yes, it will help infiltrate the water, and it like you said, the water will run in, it will be absorbed in the ground, and it will be as if the solar panels weren't there.
Okay, I don't remember all the questions and concerns that came up. Is there other questions for Mr. Montague? This is for the board members and for ZBA. Yes.
Welcome, Mr. Montague. My question is, can you, maybe I missed this if you already went through this, so please do it again for me. What is your relationship to this project and the owners and the client? How are you connected, and are you being paid for your testimony? Thank you.
I am an employee of EDPR, and I am the project originator. I have a long-standing relationship with Van Parken, the landowner. Well, he is one of the landowners. The land is owned in a trust. Van and I have been talking about solar for several years. I live in Champaign County here in Central Illinois, and I make my living developing solar farms.
Okay, the other question was the electrical connection, the wires between the panels.
Yeah, so most of the wiring runs underneath the panels along the structure, and then they come together into combiner boxes, which is just a box with a bunch of wires running into it, and then a fatter wire will come out of that, and that will go on a cable tray, which hangs somewhere underneath the panels. And then if there's even bigger cables, some of those may be put underground. It's 6 of one, half dozen of another in solar construction. A best practice is, it just depends on who you talk to. And this project is not far enough along to know exactly what we're going to recommend in the final design. But so it'll either be hanging off the ground underneath the structure, or it'll be buried. There will inevitably be some buried cable, but I can't tell you how much. Okay, explain this box in the corner. It says equipment pad with solar transformer, switchboards, inverters, DC connects, etc. Yeah, there's a concrete pad that gets poured where you then have a bank of inverters. The inverters are suitcase-sized boxes that are converting the DC power that comes off the solar panels to AC. That runs into a step-up transformer, which increases the voltage because the pole is running 13,000 volts. What's coming off the array is probably in the order of 1,500 volts. And so that transformer is like a transformer outside any building here in town. You know, it's a refrigerator-sized box, and that's sitting on the pad. And then a wire comes out of that underground, goes to a pole, and that goes to the nearest pole on the road. Okay. Board, yes, land use.
I hate to belabor, but I want to go back to the tile once more. You said how deep do those go in the ground? 12 to 15 feet is standard. It depends on, you would actually do a cold test when you're getting closer to final, for construction plans. And it depends on the soil type, exactly how long the piles have to be. But standard in Central Illinois, we tend to have quite deep topsoil. And so, and good soil, I mean, you don't want too little
or you don't want too little soil. In other words, you don't want to run into bedrock. That would be a problem. We don't anticipate that here, but 12 to 15 feet would be standard practice.
And how do you install them?
It's a driven pile.
It's a driven pile.
Vibrationally driven, yes.
Okay, and a lot of our tiles, and I appreciate you said the first point is to avoid tile, but
Yes.
what effort do you make to locate tile before you construct?
Yeah, there are experts in locating drain tile, and we would hire those experts because fixing the tile is much more expensive than avoiding it, and so we would plan on the front end to do our darndest to miss the tile.
But a good portion of our tile today is plastic corrugated.
Correct.
And if you're using a pile driver to drive that, how do you know when you drive right through one of those tiles and never know it?
That's a good question, and I am not the right person to answer that particular question, but trust me, this is a mature industry. Okay, the solar industry has been happening in the United States for over 50 years. It's just new in Illinois. It's a latecomer to the Midwest. So the practices have evolved over decades, and we are very concerned for drainage because we're running electricity on the field, and we don't want water to accumulate. We don't want to cause problems for our neighbors, just like farmers don't want to cause problems. We too are farmers. We're just farming sunlight to electricity instead of sunlight to corn and beans. And we have very similar concerns, though, for things like runoff.
The reason I ask these questions is we've had an incident here in Tazewell County where fiber optic cables were buried, and the farmers were told that they can tell if the machine, as they're knifing them in, hits a tile and repairs it. Well, they couldn't, because a couple of years later there was a serious problem, and the fiber optic cable was damaged, and there was a tile had not been repaired, and they had cut it clear in two. And that's why I find it hard to realize how they would know if you drive a piling through a plastic tile. That's my concern.
You have to remember that, I mean, I walked this site, the site we're talking about, and Van Parkin is here and he can comment as well. There are several ditches, there are 3 large ditches running through the parcel. And they're grassy, they're about 10 feet wide, and you know, when there's a heavy rain, they turn into little streamlets, right? Well, if a tile breaks, the water is going to come out of the ground and then run on the surface and run to those ditches, right? Those ditches are very large. And so I don't see any concern for there being additional runoff. The drain tiles are running to ditches themselves, right? And then they're running to a river. The whole thing is to get the water to the Mississippi, and it's doing that. So the other thing I would say is, if there is a local problem and a neighbor notices or a landowner notices, we will be alerted and we will go out and rectify the situation. It's not good for us either to have an erosion problem. We are very, very concerned about the environment. We want less runoff, we want less soil erosion, we want less chemical runoff, etc. That is our aim.
Thank you.
Okay, Don?
I want to back up to electrical connections. I know you said connector boxes, and I envision that collector box, I guess the term was, at the end of a rack where all wires for that rack come to. And then you mentioned cable raceways from there to go to another collecting facility, and then finally off to where your inverters are and those type of things.
Yep.
Is that raceway above the ground?
Most often these days it is.
Okay. Thank you.
there is a ground mount solar project in Tremont. I drove by it this evening, and you can see some of the practices for standard solar construction visiting the high school there.
Okay, other questions from the board or land use? Okay, what is the length of life of these panels?
Generally, we say 25 years, 25 or 30 years. The technology degrades at about 0.4% per year. So after 25 years, you've got the panels producing at about 80% of what they did on day one. You can let them run, but the land lease is 20 years with 2 5-year extensions, I believe. And then you would potentially repower the array or decommission the plant, take out all the steel, take out all the wire. Those materials are very valuable and would be recycled, and return the field, which is then basically organic farm ground and worth more than it was to begin with.
Okay, and maybe this is for both you and Jackie. There's a bond or some kind of system to guarantee that at the end of this life, it's removed and returned back to farm grounds.
Correct, so they'll have a required agreement with the county and a bond held in place that's evaluated. The last we did was every 4 years, along with renewing the bond to make up the additional cost if needed, and that's in addition to the state required payment.
Okay, other questions? Okay, I'm going to dismiss you temporarily, and Van Parkin? Yes. Name and address for the record.
Yes, Van Parkin, 7655 Brickyard Hill Road, Worthing, Illinois, 62097.
And do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self you got? Okay. What is your relationship to this project? And do you have anything additional to add to the current testimony we've heard from these two guys?
Yes, simply, I'm the co-trustee of the 2 trusts that own this property. The Toy Hager GST Family Trust, the David E. Hager GST Family Trust. As co-trustee, I live for this project, and it became clear to me that solar is where electricity is going in this country. I also want to do my part to move that direction. And finally, as the trustee of these 2 GSTs, it's my financial responsibility to look at alternative income sources for the beneficiaries.
And you're, as trustee, you're willing to enter into a 20 or 25-year agreement that your trusts are going to run that long, and so on and so forth.
Yes, they are generations giving trusts. So
okay.
To my wife's children and 2 sisters' children.
And you'd heard earlier from some of the questioning that Tazewell County values its prime farm ground for agricultural crops. And so was it solely a financial decision to go with solar versus agricultural crops, or what helped lead to the decision?
Both, as I mentioned in my earlier statement. I do believe that this is where we are headed as a country, and we have to look at alternative sources of energy. Renewable is the way to go, whether it's electric or solar, or wind. important as well, and that's part of my task as a co-trustee to make sure that I'm doing the best I can for the city.
Okay, we had heard it was approximately 25 acres for this project. Is this an 80-acre tract or approximately, and the remainder of it will be farm ground?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Board members, land use, questions for Mr. Parkin? Okay, you're temporarily excused. Thank you. I'm gonna set these here, but they go back in that folder. Oh, yeah, down here. Catherine Peters. Yes. Yep. Okay, name and address for the record.
Kathleen Peters, 2445 Hunziker Road, Washington, Illinois.
And do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, how this usually works is we give you a short period of time for any opening comments, and then you may ask questions of either one of these three gentlemen that have testified before you. They can ask questions of you, as well as the board members can ask questions, and then once all the questions are done, you'll be given a time for your closing comments. Okay? So, opening statements.
Well, I represent Peters Family Farms. We farm on the north side of this tract of land. We also farm on the east side of this tract of land. On the north side, we farmed over 45 years, on the east side, over 60 years. My concern is the water runoff. I have a little stat here, an inch of water can produce 27,000 gallons of water in 1 inch of rain. I'm concerned about what materials are inside of these panels, should they break? And how long will construction take? And what time frame is that? And if it turns out to be a rainy season, are we gonna have that water backed up on the land?
Okay, any one of you three gentlemen want to start addressing some of these questions? Okay, is there a microphone at the end of this? Okay, the first, and I'm going to paraphrase, if I say something wrong, you correct me. Her first question was, she wants to know, are there chemicals or what's inside these panels, and is it dangerous?
The panels are made of silicon, glass, aluminum. They are hermetically sealed. They are designed to withstand the environment for 25 years. They are hail resistant. Panels will break if there's large hail or if there's a tornado, and then they would be replaced. A broken solar farm does not earn revenue, and so the owner and operator, which would be EDPR, wants to keep the solar farm 100% functional. So there is zero risk of anything running off from the photovoltaic panels.
Okay, and I'm gonna, again, if I'm speaking correctly, you stop me. I think another concern, what kind of wind will they withstand? Because you're the neighboring farm, right?
Yes, we went through a tornado back in 13 North Washington, and that was a massive cleanup.
Okay,
And as we know, the north side of this farm, actually, most things come from the south. I do not want to have to go through that, I want to bring that down. And I have learned that along the way that, is this new and improved the contents of these panels? Because in my travels, I see on the pole hazardous materials, and I've heard that maybe they've been improved, that they aren't hazardous, or they have previously hazardous materials in the panels.
Well, there are different kinds of solar panels. We at EDPR use what's called crystalline solar photovoltaics. They are not toxic. That is a common misunderstanding, but silicon and glass is the main contents of the solar panels. It is not toxic. If there were a tornado that hit the solar farm, it would most certainly damage the solar farm. And if you just Google that, you will see the results. So, just like a garage or a RV or a home is damaged when a tornado hits it, right? There's flying debris. So, yes, there would be flying debris from a solar farm just like there would any other structure.
okay, she also had questions about construction time frame.
These 5 megawatt solar farms, which you're going to see a lot of, but you have to remember that Tazewell County has 420,000 acres. So 5 acres is not a big piece of Tazewell County. We have 3 projects on the docket this evening, so there's more acreage here, but anyway, construction of these projects is 3 to 6 months. And during construction, you're taking remedial action. You're just like you would on any construction site. You're putting bales around the site to reduce any soil erosion, and you're taking standard remedial action. It's a highly regulated industry. This solar construction industry. We have to meet all the county code requirements.
Okay, then you are to the north of this and east, correct?
We're the only farming industry on the north and east, but on the west is abandoned railroad tracks.
Okay, on the north, we've already heard testimony that there's a waterway on this particular property, and it looks like it catches the corner of your farm to the north. Does that water flow north or south?
It flows northwest.
Okay, so it's coming off of this property onto you.
Yes. And there's a short waterway there, but in a bad year, it's almost impossible to cross to get down there. And ultimately, it ends up in the city, the water. It'll go through our land, and then it will go diagonally through another piece of land to the west, north and west of the Hager property, and then it will have an open ditch that goes into town.
Okay, and she was also concerned about tile breakage and repairs. Do you have any other specific questions? I mean, we've asked quite a few questions, but did you have anything specific?
No, my main concern is doing it during wet weather, and it's hard navigating big machinery through mud. I've been stuck myself, and so it's not an easy task to be a farmer with the wet conditions.
Okay. Board members, land use. Do you have any questions for Ms. Peters? Yes.
So the property you have to the east, when I'm looking at Exhibit B, shows what appears to be a waterway of some sort that goes into this property that we're discussing. Do you know if there's a tile line in that feeds into their waterway?
It has to be, otherwise we have a lot of water on our side, and we don't really have much of a waterway on our side.
Thank you.
Yes.
My question is more just a clarification. So the wind speed, what they will withstand, did I miss that?
No, and we'll go back to this gentleman here. Is there a specific tolerance that at a certain mile-an-hour wind they're fragile?
Generally speaking, we're designing the structure to withstand 70-mile-an-hour winds, which as a sailor I can tell you are quite rare in central Illinois. Now, if there's a tornado, you can have faster wind, but then all of the built environment is in harm's way, right?
Okay, land use or board members, other questions for Ms. Peters? Okay, do any one of the three gentlemen have any specific questions for Ms. Peters?
I do not.
I don't.
I do not.
Okay. Now's your opportunity for any closing comments.
My concern, I'm not against solar, it's not at my house, not on my land, not for my children, so it's not my house. Pretty much agricultural land has been taken out of production. So the streets, roads, housing, and just under everyone most valuable access is land. If you don't have land, you can't raise crops, you can't feed industry.
Okay, thank you. You're excused. Okay, Ty Sloniker. Okay, name and address, please.
My name is Ty Sloniker. I live at 28558 Irish Lane, Washington, Illinois.
And do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, you understand the format from the First Lady, and so you got to have a little opening statement, and then we'll have questions, and then you'll have a closing comment. So.
That's my front yard.
Okay, let's back up. Where are you in relation to this property?
I'm the house to the southeast. I'm the bottom right.
Okay, so on Exhibit B, you are adjacent to them in the southeast corner. And how many acres do you have in that little square? 5 acres. Okay, go ahead.
You can see how the water actually comes all the way to the road from both directions. And you can see in the picture, that's my front yard. I did have one question of the board itself, and maybe for Jackie. Has the Washington Township Highway Commission approved this project?
They don't believe me to come.
So not a yes or a no.
Correct, but they will have to give approval for the project is actually permitted.
There's a lot of water in our area. Kathleen can probably tell you, she's lived in the neighborhood much longer than I have. I've lived in the property for 10 years and taken a lot of good care of it. I'm not sure why this decision needs to be made today. We were given notice of this on August 17th, or less than 30 days into this. I did get some information from some of Tim's co-workers, Sandy Brainerd from EDP. I don't know the exact completion of the project. He said it'd be 3 months. They're going to work 5 or 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day, driving these pilings. depending on the daylight hours. They say it may establish up to 2 years to establish the clover cover crop that will go under that is supposedly going to absorb the runoff. Mr. Cope said that they may have some retention possibilities. I'm not qualified in the area, but I can show you the pictures from my front yard, and I don't know how you hold that much water for that long to go somewhere else someday. We don't have a lot of solar farms in our area. I don't know that anyone knows the property value impact of having this adjacent to your property. I don't see how it increases or maintains property value. I don't know our neighbors that are doing the solar farm. I've never seen them. I've lived there 10 years. The man who spoke today is from down near St. Louis. The representative here is from Champaign. They're not building this by their house. When they farm the field next to us and they tear up our fence, I have no one call or go next door and say, hey, the guy hit my fence. We have no contact with them. I want to pivot back to, I'm not sure why this decision needs to be made today. In the beginning, the chairman said that this is our only time to plead our case on this. If this passes tonight, it's just a leap of faith on our part that they will put this fencing in and that it will be done right, and that it will meet this soil erosion and runoff, and all these other names. There's a lot of names in this. And I just don't see why it actually needs to be made tonight on this. I think there needs to be more information and properly designed drawings put to the residents before decisions made.
Okay, board members, land use questions for Mr. Sloniger? Okay, I'm maybe a little bit off, or have my directions turned around. You said this was your front yard, but it shows crops behind your house. So what corner am I looking at in this first photo?
That picture is looking, I guess it would be southwest. So the field east of me fills so much full of water, and then we also have water that comes from across the road that just lives in this field next to me.
Yes, so in the map I'm looking at, Exhibit B, I can see that big waterway to the south, and it goes under Irish Lane. I assume there's a culvert or something there.
There's no culvert that I know of that goes under the road to the north. It just makes a U-turn there in front of my neighbor across the road's house, and then all the water that comes from this field that's on the north side there has nowhere to go. It just stacks up there.
Okay, but we had heard earlier testimony that the water off of this parcel flows to the north and you are to the south.
You see how much water sits.
All the dark spots is where the water sits.
Wait a minute, you're not sworn in. Okay, continue on.
This is my home.
Yes.
A lot of this water in this area.
Okay, so the bottom part of the farm does come south, even though the big waterway may flow north.
This water goes to Deer Creek, which runs right in front of here. It goes to Deer Creek. And all that water there goes to Farm Creek, which runs through the city of Washington, as Peter said.
Okay, and you do understand that that purple line is not the solar farm, they moved it farther to the north.
The road still goes completely underwater. I don't know what changing some of this onto the north will do. And we have a problem here before we make any changes. And I don't think these changes are gonna help.
Okay. Land use board members, questions?
Yeah, maybe some clarification from Jackie. I'm a little confused. When I look at Exhibit A, and you got the hash marks there, is that where the solar panels is proposed to be? Is that correct?
Are you looking at Exhibit A that states as revised 8/31?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, and then when I look at Exhibit B, it says the approximate area of the solar farm. That doesn't match up with what A is.
Correct. That was the initial submittal, was that area on Exhibit B. So when they submitted, they had only submitted the Exhibit A, and that was put in place of the original Exhibit A, which was consistent with Exhibit B. So the area that they're proposing is the Exhibit A.
Exhibit A.
Correct, as revised.
So Exhibit B, that where the purple line is, we see, so they could not develop that down there. It's only where Exhibit A.
Correct, as revised.
Okay. Other questions? Board or land use? Okay, do you have any specific questions for either of these three gentlemen? Okay, do any of you three have any specific questions for Mr. Sloniger?
I do not. Would it be possible to have Exhibit A put on screen?
We'll see if we can get it up on the computer.
So show that photo there though. Just so people understand, there's three parts of the parcel, right? Divided by these ditches. Mr. Schloniger requested that we relocate the array, or he objected to the location of the array, which I can very much appreciate. And we have moved the array now to the north, so the array is on the, if you're going clockwise, the northwest and northeast of the three. It is no longer in the southern triangle, so to speak, of that, of the 80 acre parcel. And so, first of all, we just want to make sure everyone understands we are responding to his comments, moving the array away from his home, and now there is a ditch between the array and his property. There's a ditch between the array and the southern portion, so any water that runs off of the array or the solar farm is going to get caught by the ditch and not, in my opinion, not exacerbate the existing flooding problem at the far south of the parcel.
Okay, you have any other questions for these three? Okay, any other? Yes. You need to get to a microphone and remember you're still sworn in.
I'd just like to make a quick statement to Mr. Sloniger. I'm more than happy to talk to you about the issues that lie down there in the southeastern corner of that property. I'll give you my contact information and finish this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board members, land use, last opportunity for questions for Mr. Sloniger. Okay, now's your opportunity for any closing comments.
I think I just want to reiterate why is this decision being made, Michael? It's not standing babies and our best intentions and those types of things. Can just wait 30 days, can wait 60 days. Do we get more information and make a better informed decision? Or are we just going to leave it this blindly and put our faith in people that we really just don't know? I would prefer better detail.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Rosa Ripper. Maybe pull the microphone down a little bit. Name and address, please.
Rosa Ripper, 28523 Irish Lane, Washington.
And do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self you got it?
Yes.
Okay, and same format, opening statements, and then questioning, and then closing comments. So.
Well, I have the same concerns as my neighbor, Ty and Regina, and Nate. I don't know if Nate's here, but we have a lot of the flooding. We do have flooding from both sides of the road, just not from Singer's runout, but from the other gentleman on our north side. There's a lot of water that stands in there when it does rain, and we have anywhere from 9 to 14 inches of water that go across the yard, our driveways that sit in our yard. We have a large ditch, we have a large culvert, but it cannot take all of that away. We have had water all the way to our home at times. So this is a concern. I'm not against solar at all, and I just want to make sure our environment is protected and we're protected as homeowners so that we don't have. Our property is in that area in a flood zone, which we did not know about until years ago when we had the worst flooding of all. So that is my basic concern. I'm just the standing water with the mosquitoes, the flooding, the going back and the cleanups that you have after the flooding. It makes a difference when you're a homeowner and you're picking everybody's corn and beans and weeds out of your front yard and all of your rocks. That water on the north side of us comes down that ditch. I know that they have probably 8 to 12 inches of water in their front yard, where we may have more because we have both ditches. So that's my basic concern, and I'm sorry to have repeating it again from you, but this is I just can't see, even though that's been moved back, we're still going to have, are they going to raise that property so that there's going to be more of that water coming then to the south? And like my neighbors, I would like to see why this has to be decided tonight as well. Why can't we have more time to do some research and to see what all of this is going to end up meaning for us? And I don't like to see the farmland being used in this way. We need our crops. Our country is going to be starving before long, and we're taking good, valuable farmland away. And that's all I have. I'm just concerned about that at this time.
Okay, can you point on the map? Is your property on that map?
My property is right there.
Okay, so you're on the south side of the road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
We gotta scroll it down.
I am a distance from them. but-
Okay, put the cursor, right there's your property.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board members, land use, questions for Ms. Ripper? Okay, do you have any specific questions for any of these three gentlemen?
Not really, it's just when they get started with, if this goes through and they get started with their construction, how much mud and dirt are they gonna keep our road clean? Because you get into those fields and there's a lot of dirt that comes off of those big tires of that equipment. And there's going to be a lot going on. And our roads now, it seems to be busier than ever. So I'm just, that's my, you know, my biggest concern, and I would be concerned too if we had to have any ambulance or anything to come down our road. Are they going to be able to make sure the road's kept clean? And, you know, that's all I have at this time.
Okay, during construction process, what is your procedure for not tracking mud and debris on the road?
I'll take that one.
Okay.
So we will wrap the perimeter in some sort of silt protecting fabric or hay bales. There will be a washout along for construction entrance, so that all mud and debris will be washed off the tires before going on site. If a vacuum truck is required, that can also be put into the plans. I also wanted to talk about the stormwater. All the regulations and the permits have to be followed through when they're asking for more time. This is just a zoning determination, and all of the requirements for stormwater will be better than pre-existing conditions, so it will become better than pre-existing. So everything that has been put here it will more favorably increase the stormwater on any off-site property.
I guess my other question is, with the solar, is there going to be any health risks? You're going to have people with pacemakers, and is there anything that these solar panels are going to be putting off that would cause a health risk of any type?
I don't believe so, but I don't have the answer to that. I'm not a doctor.
Either one of the other two?
Electrical infrastructure like the building that you're standing in right now. It's no more dangerous than any other electrical infrastructure.
Okay, wait just a minute. Board members, land use, last opportunity for questions. Okay, do you have any closing comments?
No, I just want everyone to consider that they are moving very quickly, and we have not even had an opportunity to even digest what they're going to be doing across our road in the farmland. We haven't had time to research or do what due diligence on our part would be.
Okay, thank you. You're excused. Okay, so this is to the three of you, and we've heard it a couple different times. If approved, what is your construction timeline?
Yeah, the hard thing to appreciate about this project and all of the solar, these small solar farms, is that all we're trying to do is get an application in with the state of Illinois. We need a special use permit in order to apply into the state. Then there's a waiting game. So the relationship we have with the landowning trust it's called a lease option agreement. We're not actually going to develop anything at this stage of the game. We want to have the possibility of developing a solar project, but it will be some time before that decision is made, and only if we are awarded incentives from what's called the adjustable block program that is run by the state of Illinois. It's also called Illinois Shines. without those incentives, which there's a limited number of, without those incentives, this project will not get constructed. Without the special use permit, we cannot file our application into the program. So that's why there is a sense of urgency. These solar farms are going to get built, a couple per county. There's 100 counties in Illinois. And it's just a question of which landowners will benefit. We would like to benefit the landowners of Tazewell County. We have 3 projects before you today. If we are able to win a special use permit, that will allow us to file the application with the state.
Okay, now that you've explained that, that makes it a little more clear. So the last time the state had a lottery, is it going to be a lottery again this time, or you made the comment that every county will get some?
Yeah, it's a complicated process, but no, there's no lottery now. It's a scoring system that the state has devised, and so they award projects points based on who is going to benefit from the project. For example, is it in a low-income area? Who are the subscribers going to be to this solar farm? These are what's called community solar farms. Anybody in Ameren territory can subscribe to the solar farm and buy electricity from these projects until they're fully subscribed. And so it's very difficult to know how well we will do, so to speak, in the scoring process. Unfortunately, the odds are not great, but nonetheless, it's a good project for the landowners, and it's a good project for Illinois. The projects are going to get built somewhere, it's just a question of where.
Okay, yes, because the first round, the odds were very, very minuscule, and Tazewell received no drawings in the lottery. Okay, so explain to the public a little more on the community solar farm. People can subscribe to it, and then do they get a reduction in their electric bill, or how do they benefit?
Yeah, so you sign up to be a subscriber to the community solar farm. You will then be buying power from that project at a discount over what you're paying for grid power. The typical discount is 10%, 10 to 20% cheaper than what you would pay Ameren or the other suppliers that you have. There are 70 electricity suppliers in Illinois. And so it just becomes a second utility that you're paying a bill to, and then whatever you buy from the solar farm is discounted from your regular electric bill.
And so a solar farm of this size can power approximately how many homes?
I need my calculator, which I don't have on me, I'm sorry, I don't know. It's maybe a couple of hundred.
Okay, so how many subscribers? You said there was a limited number of subscriptions. How many subscribers?
Yeah, again, I don't have that math off the top of my head. I apologize, but yeah, it's a finite number, and it's in the hundreds for a 5 megawatt project.
Okay, board members, questions? Yes, land use.
I have a question. I'm not discounting what you said about no comment from the city of Washington. There is a comment in there in the
No, it was the road commissioner, Washington
the road.
Township.
I'm sorry, okay.
Right.
But the state
City.
of Washington did have a few comments about when you do deliberations to look it up about the fencing and the stormwater runoff. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions from board members or land use? Okay, to your three gentlemen, now is your opportunity for closing comments on this case.
I guess in closing, this is a beneficial project to help out energy needs in the state of Illinois. We will obtain all permits and follow all regulations and make the project stormwater runoff better than it was in the existing condition.
Okay, anything additional?
I would just second those comments. Those are good.
Okay, anything additional?
I'd just like to add.
Yes. Go ahead.
I'd just like to add that.
Is the green light on?
Just like to add that as we considered this, those things were very important to me. That the land be put back to its original state, that equipment's ever pulled. That's number one. Also, that during the process of putting it together, that all those issues with regard to runoff were addressed and made right. So I'm hopeful that the zoning board considers this opportunity to help out not only the state of Illinois, but also as we move forward in the green evolution, if you will, that we make a dent in it here in Tazewell County.
Okay, earlier you had offered your contact information to Mr. Schloniger, I think. Are you also willing to offer your contact information to Miss Peters? Was that her name?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I got you on the record. Okay, thank you. That concludes case, what are we, 2228? Okay. Let us get our paperwork together here, and then we're going to do the next two cases together, 2230 and 2231. I'm sorry. I'm looking at too many papers. Yes. Okay. The next two cases, 2229S and 2230S, same petitioner, EDPRNA, Illinois Development LLC, are requesting special use to construct 4.95 megawatt commercial solar farms in an A1 district, and that's for both 2230 and 2229. Our reports are Health Department, portable toilets and hand washing stations to be provided during construction. Soil and Water recommends denial. Farm Bureau had no comment. Tazewell County Highway Department had no comment. Village of Morton and Morton Road Township Road Commissioner had no comment, and Mike Harris from IDOT had no objection. And so we've got Gabe, the land use planner, has some input on both these cases.
Yeah, the findings of fact are 12 positives and 2 not applicables. So based on the findings of fact, we recommend the special use to construct a 4.95 megawatt commercial solar farm in A1 agricultural preservation district B.
Okay, thank you.
This is case number 22-3.
22-30-S, petition by pt1 Illinois Development, request for special use to allow construction of a solar farm in A1 district. From Exhibit A, this direction is east. This is the proposed location of 22-29-S. This direction is north in Washington Road. This direction is west, and this is the approximate location of 22-30-S. This direction is south on Washington Road.
Okay, Jackie, we've been listing these as 4.95 megawatt commercial solar farms, but in the last case, and it was also commercial solar farm, but we heard that it was a community solar farm. So how does the county?
So the state views it as commercial, but because of the way we restrict the acreage to 5 acres or less for community in our ordinance, community solar farm in our ordinance is just that. It's direct to the user. It's just a handful of homes maybe that's powered by the solar. It's not necessarily these larger, more utility scale.
Okay, so commercial to me indicates that all the power's going out on the grid, whereas community indicates that the subscribers get power from, so the commercial designation is a state term, but our county term is community.
So in our ordinance, community is restricted to 5 acres or less.
And these are 5 acres.
These are, no, these are 25 acres.
Yes.
These are
I'm
megawatts.
sorry, 4.9.
Correct. So the state is referring to this
Okay.
as community. We would consider them commercial in our ordinance.
Okay, I was looking at the 4.95 megawatt. That's watts, not acres. Okay, so that clarifies that. Okay, so we've seen the video and we've heard the reports, and it's the same petitioners. And so explain your request for 2229 and 2230.
Do we have them to show on the screen?
Yep, what do you want? Exhibit B from 22, or Exhibit A from 2229?
Yes, please.
It's about the 4th or 5th page in. Okay, A is right before that. I think that's B. Yep. Okay.
You can see this one is, I think, 27 acres. It's tucked up in between a power line easement and the Highway 74. Access is off of South Main Street. And this box shape is where the arrays will go.
Okay, and then 2230, Exhibit A.
All right, and then Fan Parking number 3 is located south of 74 with the access coming off of South Main Street to the west.
Okay, and then scroll it up one to Exhibit B. Okay, so the two proposed sites are, well, they're not adjacent to each other, but they're both south of 74.
Correct.
Okay. Board members, questions? Land use? Yes.
So I'm looking at Exhibit B that shows both parcels on it. And the one on the west side of South Main Street appears to have terraces on the western edge of the site that you've selected. How do you work around terraces?
Okay, that's for either one of you. I think he's referring to those two loops that appear to be terraces there in that corner.
I don't know what else it'd be. They're not waterways from what I can tell.
Yeah, it's conceivable that there are some small terraces there. I couldn't get that deep into the site. I stayed on the road when I visited the site, but keep in mind that the rows of solar panels are running north-south, and we just want to avoid any grade above 10 degrees. So if there's no significant grade, then we just drive the piles right there. There's no necessary treatment. If there is a greater grade, then we would have to get a grading permit, and the site would be graded slightly. But I don't know that we're that far along in, maybe Mr. Cope has some sense of that. I don't.
Okay, let's, the trustee, are those terraces, or how is that farmland laid there?
Our trusts, or terraces, excuse me.
They're what? They are terraces.
Small terraces.
Okay. Typically there's two different types of terraces. These appear to be what I would refer to as grass-back terraces. There's grass on both sides.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, land use, board members, questions? Yep.
Well, a lot of the same comments, but you have before you here soil and water. I don't know if you've seen the video and you've seen that corn that was growing there, and it tears my heart up to see farmland. I was born and raised on a farm, and I know the land produces crops year after year. And soil and water on each of these cases have recommended denial. And the gentleman just spoke of 10% slope, and they, on case 30, they said there is a 10% slope, the one that does have the terraces on it. So I've got the same concerns that you heard from me on the other case.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, Robert Lee. Oh. Did you have a question? What's your name? Okay, are you representing Robert Lee, or? Okay, wait just a minute here. I gotta get you're number 4 on the list. So I got to go in order. Okay, Robert Lee, are you here? And would you like to speak, or do you want your attorney to speak for you?
I would like my attorney to speak for him, but
He can when we get to that point.
I did have something come up.
Okay, come to the microphone. Name and address.
Robert Lee, 20350 Washington Road, Illinois.
Okay.
I'm in the south house.
You're in the house between the two?
Yep.
Oh, I see. There's two houses on that property?
Yes.
Okay. And like before, you got a short time for opening comments, and then questions, and then closing.
Okay. Well, one of the attorney did, something came up in my head where some of the tile could be potentially, I don't know for sure, clay tile. And you go pounding metal posts in the ground. I'm thinking that clay tile would hold up. I don't know what's in that. So probably plastic, but some of the older tile might still be there.
Yes. Many of my farms still have clay tile, and so as long as it's working, we're not replacing it. But when it quits working, then we upgrade to plastic.
So if you're ever messing with an old clay tile on the ground, they're pretty brittle.
Right. And okay.
I didn't want to repeat anything that the lawyer's going to say, so
okay,
I'm
going to have you take a seat, but we're going to reserve in case anybody wants any specific questions. Okay, Michelle Gintherly.
Hi, Michelle Gintherly, 20350 Washington Road, Norton.
Okay.
Same house as Bob, or on south side.
Okay.
I just want to share with the group that.
Wait a minute. Oh, yep. Do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self you got? And I'll come back to you and swear you in. If you'll just stand up now. Do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self you got?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to share with the group that between the two homes on the property, Bob and I have been there for 25 years. We started out in the old farmhouse next door, and we moved to the new house on the south side. Obviously, we love where we live. We love the view, we love the corn. We spend time in our backyard. We have a pool. We spend the afternoons. My concern is with the facing of the solar panels. What's the glare going to be for us to enjoy our time in the pool? We sit in our sunroom that faces dead east. We sit and enjoy our coffee, and we enjoy the view. Going forward, we're going to have panels. We're in the country. We don't have chain link in the country. We have split rail fence. We have horse fencing. We've had a horse for years. We currently don't have one now, but we put up a new building. We have 2 horse stalls there for future use. Also to know, Mr. Hager, we're right in the center of the Hager estate. Mr. Hager was an ag teacher for the high school. Mr. Hager farmed the ground. He appreciated, as you would. You remind me of him with your comments. All I can say is, I asked you that you consider voting this down. The time frame is a big concern. We found out last week. Bob looked across in the field, and you can see from the video that he shot the little zoning sign that was posted in the weeds. He was going over thinking it was a box, pick up the garbage, you know. No, that's how we found out. Of all the ground in Tazewell County, prime farm ground for these panels is, I'm still in shock that this is even a possibility that solar panels will take over such beautiful ground. There's ground in Tazewell County that's not as good, that could be used for solar panels. When you look at the picture, this one doesn't quite show all of the layout of the farm ground, but of the land that's owned, even by the Hager Estate, it couldn't be in a worse spot for us neighbors than directly in front of us and directly behind us. So that's what I have to say for your consideration.
Okay, she brought up glare. Can any one of you three address glare from solar panels?
Solar panels are designed to absorb light, and they are permitted around airports. That's generally where you have the most concern for glare. If you fly into Indianapolis, you will see a solar farm right there outside the airport. But it's more a question of, do you like the look of solar versus corn? Of course, it's a change. I'm not going to argue with that.
Absolutely, and home value. I mean, I truly believe the home value for the us and our neighbor is definitely impacted.
Okay, do you know of any instances where property values are diminished or changed when they're next to solar farms?
I don't have the reference with me, but there are studies of this phenomenon. And my understanding is that they are neutral. The impact of solar farms on property values is neutral.
Okay. I think the other, and again, like the previous lady, if I misquote, please correct me. Is there any, I'm going to call it distraction, or she indicated they had animals, any effect or any way that it distracts animals? I don't know if that's what.
Exactly.
How would it affect her horses?
I can't address that. I don't know.
Okay.
I do have concern also with the comments of, okay, so if this is approved for the special use permit, then what happens the next step? I mean, if this is approved and they get the funding, then they're just free to start construction?
Okay, and they will be able to better tell you the state end of it, okay? Because, and you correct me if I'm wrong, he indicated that if they don't get, I'm going to call it a lottery, but it's a different process now. If they don't get approval from the state, they're not going to build, okay? And it's my understanding then, at that point, the project's dead. Is that correct?
This is a 10-year program that we have in Illinois now, so there will be phases, and if we don't win incentives in this round, we won't necessarily just give up, but the project will not move forward without incentives.
Okay, so Jackie, if approved, our special use is good for how long?
Our special uses are typically good for 1 year. Typically, we'll see them ask for multiple years in these cases, or they will have to come back and ask for additional time, as we've seen in the past, extensions.
Okay, so for tonight, if they don't, if approved, that's the scenario you're proposing, then that means they could build in the county. If they get I'm gonna say approval from the state, or they win one of these lotteries, they've got 1 year in order to build. If they don't achieve success in this round of the lottery, they either have to reapply or come back and ask for an extension. Is that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I have a question for Van also. So what's going to happen on the interim if we're waiting for this, assuming that this is approved and they're waiting for construction? So will there be farming still happening, or will the crops just stop and nothing happen with the fields until construction begins?
Farming will continue.
Okay, to follow up on that question, what is the state schedule? Do you guys know when they're meeting again to review all the applicants and then determine by their point systems which ones are approved?
Yeah, I think we anticipate knowing something by the end of the year.
Okay, so that's the best answer we can give you from the state end. Okay, and I keep referring to it as a lottery. That was the previous one. They actually drew out of a hat which ones got built and which one. But now it sounds like they refined it to a point system, and each project will be evaluated by the state, and the ones with the, I don't know if the term is the most points or the best points, will be awarded first, if that's the way I understand it. Okay. All right. Board members, land use, any specific questions? Okay, any other specific questions between the petitioner and the objector? Okay, thank you. Brian Tanner. Name and address, please.
Brian Tanner, 27500 US Highway 150 in Morton.
Do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self you got?
I do affirm.
Okay. Same format, opening comments, questions, and then closing comments.
So I am a nearby landowner, so I own land in Woodford and Livingston counties, and I am a farmer. So that's the perspective that I come from. Several years ago, when solar started becoming a thing, I researched it quite extensively for my own farms. For many reasons, decided not to pursue it on my own land. It did look like a great income source, and I'm like Mr. Parkin, always looking to increase my revenue. But I have a few questions, 4 questions actually, before my closing comments. So the first question more pertains to the zoning board, and my question is, why don't we use land with a low productivity index to supply our electrical energy and use our highly productive land to produce agricultural energy? I'll go through all my questions and then you can answer them in order you like. My second question, more to the developers, how much does it cost to build an acre of solar, and how much of that cost is subsidized by the taxpayer? And my question is also, why should I as a taxpayer pay for a project that will reduce the cost of approximately 200 homeowners' electric needs by 10% when my electric bill just increased 100% in the last couple of months? So then, number 3, this kind of goes back to the land use. When I look at my own land and how it affects the people around me, and my neighbors, Mr. Parkman, you are interested in putting this on 3 separate parcels of land. I'm assuming to meet the zoning requirements here in Tazewell County. Well, why would we put one 78-acre farm instead of 3 26-acre farms of solar and build it more efficiently all in one spot and affect less people? And then my last question pertains to Mr. Parkman, and like I said, I appreciate your perspective, but if you live next to the property, would you be as interested in signing up for a 20 to 30 year commitment to try to increase your revenue and then affect your neighbors in a negative way? So, in closing, out of consideration for my neighbors that live nearby, and myself, I drive by this nearly every day. I would just ask the board to reject the special use permit and uphold the agricultural zoning that we currently have.
Okay, I will start, and maybe Jackie can, or other board members. Our zoning code was developed years ago, and our forefathers put in it that agriculture was Tazewell County's #1 business. And so they put stipulations in the zoning code to protect what we consider prime farm ground, okay? The first round of solar farms, these community or small less than 5 megawatt solar farms, I don't know how many applications we had. We had 3 every month there for a while. And I'm gonna say numerous of them were approved, but none of them received state approval, so none of them will build, okay? And the thought was that at the end of the 20 years, it's still prime farm ground, okay? Someone had made the comment earlier that, you know, instead of harvesting corn and beans, they're harvesting sunlight for the next 20 years. And so that was the thought process at that time, okay? Jackie or board members, other thing to add to that? I think that was his first question there.
It was more specific to why don't we use lower productivity indexed around.
And we did have some of those early cases that were requested on lower productivity ground. We have, as a board, we have no control as to who asked the request. And so in this case, the trust, from what I've seen in the paperwork that I have, the majority of their ground is prime farm ground. And if they want to proceed with getting or potentially getting a solar farm, that's their right to do it. And so we have approved it on both prime and less than prime farm ground. Does that kind of answer that question? Okay. I think your next question was more to these gentlemen, and I'm not sure you're gonna get a direct answer, because your question, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, was what's the cost to build, etc., so on and so forth. And you have that right to ask them, but you also need to understand that they're in business and they're not going to tell their competitors what they're going to build a solar farm for. Does that make sense? You don't tell your competitors what you cash rent farm ground for, because I'm a farmer and we know what that is. So can you refine your question maybe?
So the last part of my question there then is, explain to me why should I as a taxpayer subsidize this project to benefit Mr. Parkin, number one, and then 200, 300 community residences that will benefit from reduced electric costs.
Good question.
Which is a small amount in my mind.
The incentives that the state of Illinois is providing are paid by all ratepayers. If you pay a power bill in Illinois to an IOU, an investor-owned utility, that's Ameren, ComEd, and Mid-American, if you look at your power bill carefully, you will see a line item for renewable energy. So it's not a tax, it's a fee. And whether or not you engage in the solar industry, you're paying for the incentive is driving the renewable portfolio standard. We are now, the state has agreed by law to transition away from coal and gas and migrate to wind and solar. And so these incentives just catalyze that change. Tazewell County has an opportunity this evening to actually benefit financially and absorb some of those incentives. That's the deal. If you don't engage in solar, if you don't lease your ground, if you don't get solar in your county, you're not benefiting. That money is still being collected by Ameren. It's just being paid out to different landowners.
Okay, and this might just be a misunderstanding. You can be a community investor or recipient. It's not just for people that live in communities.
I understand.
Oh, okay.
I understand. I could be one of those 200 people.
Yes, right, okay. Then the next question, if I remember right, is more for the trustee. Why did you kind of decide for 3 little ones versus 1 big one? Or is that part of the community strategy?
Again, this is, the program only allows up to 5 megawatt projects on a single parcel.
Okay.
And that's why we've split it up on 3 different parcels. You can't do a 15 megawatt project and get incentives. It would be outside the program scope. You can still try to build a project like that, but it's non-economical today.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Well, my last question was to Mr. Parkin. And I would just ask you to be considerate of the neighbors that you're building next to.
So, excuse me, absolutely. Obviously, that's why these types of meetings are held. And at the end of the day, if the board votes this down, I understand why, and we all have to live by that. As far as my underlying intentions, I have to do what I've done here on behalf of the residuaries in the trust. And that's the bottom line.
Okay, board members, land use, any specific questions for Mr. Tanner?
I just have one. I'm 100% against this. I just hate it. Sorry.
Okay. Other questions? Yes.
I'm not sure if I can do this. Is there a reason why you guys went with the corners right across or I don't want to say this, in front of the house and behind the house on?
Okay, she's asking on Exhibit B, why is that property on the east side instead of the west side, farther away from the house, and the same way on the other side?
Right, there's right in front of the houses and then right directly behind. Could they not move it and adjust it like they did in the very first case? Where it's not so close to the houses? So their house is correct? And all this is their land, right? Is there a reason why it's specifically right here? Oh, okay, I misunderstood. Okay. this one?
Okay, you need to talk so the recorder can get it on the record.
I just misunderstood the lines. I wanted to make sure that I was.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, you pretty much asked them. You got either of you three have any questions for Mr. Tanner? Okay, you're excused. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Shea. Would you give me just a moment here? How's your fingers holding up, or you're okay? Okay. Name and address, please.
My name is William Shea, S-H-A-Y, and I'm an attorney with the firm of Peoria, Westfeld, Johnson, Nichol, and Keller. That address is 411 Hamilton Boulevard, Suite 1400, Peoria 61602.
And do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self you got?
Yes.
Okay, same format.
Okay. I was planning to go after all of the other people who are going to talk, but I'll go in this order. So I'm an attorney representing Mr. Lee and Michelle Winther Lee, who've spoken, and also Nicholas and Jill Jones, who are also here. And they live in a house just to the north instead of the south that's sandwiched in between these two projects. So I want to address a few things. First, I thought it was a little bit disingenuous of the petitioner here to barely mention either of these property owners in their application, and also in the video not to show any of their homes or improvements, to giving a false impression of what this area is like. I think that is telling. With respect to the applications, I have some comments on the technical applications themselves, and specifically item 5, these findings of fact, there are subsections A through I for each of them, and I'd like to address those. First, for 2229, and in 5A it says the site will be so situated as to minimize adverse effects, including visual impacts on adjacent properties. The answer is the proposed project will not be injurious to the surrounding properties, and the small size and location of the project will not alter the character. Again, no mention of these two homes, which are directly affected, visually and otherwise. So I think that's deficient. 5B, this includes considerations of the comfort or general welfare of the neighboring vicinity. It will not be detrimental to those. The answer, the proposed project will meet or exceed all county zoning ordinance requirements and is located in A1 zoning, where these solar farms are allowed with special use. Again, no mention of the homes, which are part of the neighboring vicinity. And C, special use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity. The answer, proposed project does not anticipate to change the character of the neighboring areas or vicinity. Well, again, it doesn't answer the question whether it's injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property, and as we've heard from two of the landowners, you'll hear from at least one of the others, it is injurious. D, it will not substantially diminish or impair property value in the neighborhood. I heard Mr. Monty say that he's not an expert, but he understands that generally the impacts of these are neutral. Well, I'm familiar with such studies too, including ones done by Cone Resnick, a big real estate firm, and I think it depends on the specific project and locations and distances of various improvements, so I don't think you can generalize about that. F, I'll skip over E. F says adequate measures have been taken or will be taken to provide ingress and egress, so designed to minimize traffic congestion and hazard. So we've seen for both of these projects, the ingress and egress will be from Washington Road, sometimes called Washington Blacktop, which has a 50 to 55 mile an hour speed limit. And from my personal experience, I live in the area, I know that cars often, if not usually, go faster than that. Plus you have a blind spot coming from the north when you're coming over I-74 overpass. And so it seems like a very dangerous area for construction equipment to be going in and out of not just one, but both sides of the road. Then on H, says the special use is consistent with the existing uses of property. The answer is primary land use in the surrounding area is agricultural and rural residential. Okay, rural residential, it finally mentioned that there's somebody else living nearby. Well, again, it doesn't really, it seems inconsistent with the uses of the property, just immediately to the east of one of these projects and to the west of the other. And these two landowners are going to be sandwiched right in between. I also want to make some comments about the pre-applications to Ameren for the interconnection. So I think those are problematic too, each in their own way. Excuse me a moment, there's a lot of paper. So for, in taking these separately, number 2229S, and you'll have these in the packets towards the rear. And this is in the Ameren pre-application report. They report that the point of interconnection for that project is 4 miles away from the Ameren substation. It mentions that there's single-phase electric lines and 3-phase, but the 3-phase is 3 miles away. It mentions constraints, that there are substation capacitance constraints, and in the conductors leading to the substation from the point of interconnection. It mentions that a single-phase regulator would have to be moved, but when it is moved, with the addition of this 5 megawatt solar project, it would exceed, quote, it would exceed our voltage limits of 120 volts distribution, end quote. And then it says a better option would be to approach ComEd about connecting into their transmission lines. So I see all kinds of problems here. I understand, maybe one of the representatives of the company can answer this, but I understand that the Ameren line going down in front of these homes on Washington is single phase, and that you have to go quite a distance to the north to reach 3-phase. But it's not clear from this application where the lines from the projects are going to interconnect with Ameren at the 3-phase level, and if they need to interconnect with 3-phase. So I would like to have that addressed. As far as precedent and the way this body has acted, I've looked at meeting minutes from the last 5 years of this body, and there have been a great number of projects proposed and permitted. And as you said, Mr. Chairman, most of them got caught up in the lottery and not been approved. I know there's one over Tremont High School that was approved, it's been built. I don't know about any others. But my understanding is the way that the program works before the Illinois Power Agency is those projects remain in backlog. And we can be reestablished as more capacity and renewable energy credits become available, and can potentially be qualified in the future. So you might see quite an influx of new projects over the next few years as more renewable energy credits become available. So a lot of these projects that you approve or permitted that didn't make it through the state lottery may make it through in the next few years. So it's not just a matter of these 3 projects only. So we're looking at quite a few. There needs to be 3 more on top of all those others. As far as subscribers, I think there was a reference in the materials, if I remember right, to this is going to benefit local users of electricity who will be consuming local green energy. Again, that's not necessarily the case, because subscribers can be anywhere within Ameren service territory. And I know Ameren, Illinois has 1.2 million customers. So they could be customers in Quincy, or down in East St. Louis, or here, anywhere in Ameren service territory. So it may not be any subscribers in Tazewell County as possible. So they would not be one of those 200 that we talked about. So you've heard some recommendations that these 2 projects be denied, and I will take that position as well on behalf of my clients. I would say at the least that you consider deferring the decision if you do not deny them. You should not approve them tonight. And on that note, as far as the timing and the need for approval or decision by EPR, I don't think that is necessary tonight. I know that the next round of projects cannot be applied for until November 1st with the Illinois Power Agency. So you've got time until your next meeting in October to make a decision, and if you approve them then, possibly with some conditions that maybe we can work out, but we haven't had a chance to talk to any representatives of the company because this came up so suddenly, as Michelle mentioned. So it seems very hasty at the very least. So with that, I'll stop.
Okay. I wrote down several things here, and again, correct me. One of the things was about traffic flow. Obviously, during construction, there's going to be traffic increase for this, whatever it was, 3 to 6 months. But after construction, what is the traffic flow for the maintenance of solar?
Virtually 0.
Okay, is it monitored off-site somehow?
Yes. Remote monitoring is standard practice.
Okay.
A service truck might come to the site once a year, a pickup truck.
So, yeah, after construction, there be very minimal additional traffic flow.
Correct.
Okay. You had several other points, and a lot of those were directed toward the Tri-County planner. I don't know if you wanted to ask them anything in specific or not.
No, not at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Board members, land use questions for Mr. Shea? Okay, you being their representative, I don't know that you can answer this question, and we've got the Joneses coming up after this, and so maybe they can answer it. We don't have that map up on the board anymore, but their houses, there's 2 houses in between the 2 proposed sites. How did they typically in rural areas The houses went with farm ground, and then as farmers expanded, houses were sold off, or do you know how those houses were acquired? Or I can direct that to them as well.
I know not in as much detail as Mr. Jones can say.
Okay.
Or one of the others who've already spoken, so I'd rather let them address that.
Okay. Do you three have any specific questions for Mr. Shea?
I do not.
Okay. Okay. Land use or the board? Okay. Closing comments?
Yeah, I observed one thing in anticipation of this. So, just so you know, if it matters, I happen to live on Broadway in Beacon on my wife's family farm, 6 generations, sesquicentennial farm, and Mr. Bear, who spoke earlier, farms one of the 2 farms that are across the road from each other. So, total about 300 acres. Is that right, Tim? Yeah. And Broadway is going through reconstruction between Veterans and Springfield Road, as you all know, and so now we're heavily spiking the traffic, but cars go along there at 60 to 70 miles an hour, and I've lived there for 4 years, and so I speak from that experience as well as my duty of representing the clients.
Okay. Thank you. Nick Jones and or Jill Jones. We need them up here. Yes. Okay, name and address, please.
I'm Nick Jones. I live at 20394 Washington Road.
And do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, sir.
Okay. Same format.
Start with a few questions first and then closing statement.
Yeah, a short period for opening comments and then questions and then closing comments.
So I guess if I were to open partially to answer your question on a little bit of history. So we do live, my wife and I, in...
I'm sorry, are you the north house or the south?
Yeah, we lived in the north house.
Okay.
20394. We lived in the house 10 years. It was built in 1916 by Dave Hager Sr. or ancestors of the Hager estate. And then at some point, before it was an estate, the roughly 6 acres that we're talking about here was divided off of that farm acreage. Initially, there was an owner of our house for about 1 year. Then the house was sold to the lease while Dave Hager Jr. lived in the house in the south. So there's a time period there where there is the ancestor, so to speak, of the estate in the south house and the lease of the north house. Dave Hager Jr. And his wife, at some point leave that home in the south. As I understand it, a different descendant of Dave Hager Jr. moves into the house for about a year. I'm unaware of ownership at that time other than she lives there, right? About a year, then the house goes on the market and the lease purchase that house, move out of the house in the north and put it up for sale. And that's when my wife and I purchased that house. So those dates are, say 1995-ish, the 6 acres becomes a separate thing. And then in 2012, my wife and I purchased the house. Okay, so a few questions that I would start with, I guess. Some of these are based on just what we've already had tonight. So the tiles, I'm assuming there's a mix of 2 different types of tiles. I would kind of assert, just because I heard first some test drilling, I think if you test drill, once you find a tile with a test drill, you've broken it. So is there, I'm anticipating some kind of sonar equipment or something that maps out the existing tile before anybody does it. But I didn't know if you had any more information or that's all.
I mean, I've talked to engineering firms that, you know, run these projects, the tile mapping, and there's various techniques used. They generally involve sticking things in the ground and digging holes. I'm not an expert on tile.
Second question, you know, these materials, I'm not so, my concern isn't hazardous to me as it sits out the field. The materials are either hazardous for disposal or not, and that's regulated by the Toxic Substances Control Act. Are these materials regulated by the Toxic Substances Control Act or not? That would be like something I think that every one of these plans should indicate on it for the board or anyone reviewing it.
Not that I'm aware of.
You mentioned the Illinois Shines incentive. If EDP was not to earn an incentive from the Illinois Shines, would you build a solar farm?
Very unlikely.
Why is that? Why not?
The same reason solar didn't come to Illinois until Illinois Shines was established.
Would be uneconomical to build a solar farm with your own investment?
Correct.
Okay. I feel the investment, or I feel the incentive is worth these details that we're going over tonight. I feel like they should come to you with those details. If the incentive is not a yay or nay, whether it even happens, then you show me to learn about it. And then so within EDP or EDP's financial plan or the Illinois Shines incentive, would there be a benefit to Bob Lee, Michelle Winter Lee, Jill Jones, or Nick Jones?
That's up to those individuals. Anyone can benefit in Ameren territory.
Yeah. I'll ask a question for you, sir. Sorry. I had this question, you discussed it a little bit earlier, so I was glad you mentioned a couple hundred homes could be supplied by a 25-acre, 5-megawatt solar farm. It is 0.125 acres per house. So imagine your house independently standing, you would need 0.125 acres of solar array to potentially power your house during the day when the sun's out. The reason I ask that question and bring it up is because solar power is part of the answer. I mean, I support green energy. I think it's definitely part of the plan. It is not a sustainable solution. There is not enough solar, there's not enough farm ground in Tazewell County to replace one peak energy. Just, it's part of the plan, it is not a rush or a solution, so to speak, to fossil fuels. I did have a couple questions for Mr. Parkin, if that's okay. First of all, nice to meet you. I live in your great grandfather-in-law's house, I guess. It's a wonderful house. We really like it. So I'm not asking for specific numbers. I guess I want to be careful how you mentioned having a fiduciary responsibility to the estate, and I appreciate that. Farming is getting tougher and tougher. I'm aware of it. My father-in-law is a farmer as well. But is part of that fiduciary responsibility involved? Does the estate have a financial responsibility to others annually to run the farming operation? Is it, you incur expenses from folks that are not part of the estate to put the crop in and harvest the crop?
We farm some of it, and my brother-in-law farms some of it. When I say we, myself and my cousin, Anthony Parkin.
Okay. So they are, so your cousin's probably, so partial expenses that the estate incurs to farm the land are from outside the estate, and that those individuals aren't.
The land is cash rented.
Yes.
So all expenses are incurred by myself and my brother-in-law.
And so, back to the fiduciary responsibility, why is perhaps this land is pretty close to Morton? You got Mayfair right there, Morton's growing all the time. Has there ever been discussion for a housing development or something? Has anyone ever approached, or would you consider that type of investment for the estate?
Never given any thought.
Okay. I was just wondering if there was anything that would prevent it, or if there was a reason, one way or the other, since this time development. Okay. And I really think this question was already asked, but I wasn't sure if I got the answer completely. But if yourself or another benefactor of the Hager estate lived in the property, do you believe that you would install the solar farms at this location or on this parcels?
I believe I can look into it, yes.
All right. I'll just go ahead with some. We talked about the kind of condition of the zoning. Somebody spoke early on, and sorry I didn't catch the name. They talked about the zoning ordinances and that. So here in the first page is part of what I wanted to speak on. Actually, the cover of this is just a citation from where the information comes from. It's the U of I College Law Library. So some of our neighboring counties, or I'll say Illinois counties, have addressed some of this. So for instance, in Knox County, solar farms over 5 acres require perimeter fences and panels must be at least 500 feet from a residence. Menard County, solar panels must be at least 500 feet from a residence. And Montgomery County, solar panels must be at least 500 feet from a residence unless the landowners sign a waiver. Sangamon County establishes a setback of at least 250 feet from an existing dwelling. Requires landscaping screening from any part that is visible from an existing dwelling within 500 feet. Whiteside County, 500 feet from a residence for the panels themselves. And then the last one there on this page, solar panels, it's Woodford County, sorry, just a couple miles up from my house, darn it. Solar panels must be at least 500 feet from a residence. So, I'll go over some of the other stuff in these next few pages, and you'll kind of see that if you guys are even entertaining certain rules or additions to your zoning ordinances, these, we wouldn't even be here talking about these farms, it'd be impossible. So, sorry. This is, here in white, I traced the estate's two parcels that we're talking about together. Okay, so you have a 172 acre parcel here, east of Washington Road, and you have a roughly 65 acre parcel here. I'm trying to present a case that these are somewhat of a poor selection for a project like this, okay? And the first one is I-74. I-74 cut through this property when it was constructed at first, which is a line division that makes it hard to work around. Secondly, shown a little better on this half here, conduit transmission lines, okay? I know they're hard to see. I tried to trace them out with these black dashes. This parcel is split nearly in half by the conduit transmission line, which I assume has a decent easement, right, indicating that nothing could be underneath of it. And I suspect that's the reason for the dog-leg shape of the solar farm as it is today on this plan. Third reason, a couple people hit on it or asked about it.